Meeting has begun.
And that is something that I personally think is something that I want to share with others as I learn more about it and as others continue to learn more about it as well. To get this started, I did want to share just a little bit of my background so folks know kind of where I'm coming from and how my view or my lens is with this topic. My background, even though I'm working in housing now, originally started at the University of Connecticut working in alcohol and drug prevention. So I have some experience outside of the dysfunctional area, but that changed very quickly as I fell in love with housing at Oregon State University, where I'm currently at as a resident director. And then, as Richard just mentioned just a moment ago, I'm going to be transitioning over to Eastern Washington University in just a couple weeks, where I will be an area coordinator. So just so you have that perspective, my path has been primarily in the Northwest, but I do have some experience outside of the region and also outside of the functional area, which is what makes professional development really exciting for me. So 4 years professional experience, 2 years as a graduate assistant. It's been quite a journey, and if there's one thing that I've learned along the way, it's that being a new professional, you have a lot of opportunity, and being able to really create a professional development plan that will help you grow and move from that new professional up to that mid-level manager position really is important. And I've noticed that throughout my time that it's not one path, and I'll get into that more so as we go. Specifically, what I'm very interested in professionally, my experience has been in the residential education functional area of housing and residence life. So a lot of my work has been really looking at recruitment, supervision, training, and all those human resources functional aspects of the residence life unit, as well as the student conduct area as well. So if you notice that there's a lot of that human resources element to it, and that is where the professional development really comes from. In addition to that, I've also been working with the professional development committee within ACPA's Coalition for Graduate Students and New Professionals. So collectively, between Northwest NWACUHO and ACPA, I have been working with professional development for about 4.5 years. So as you can see, this is something that I really think is very important for our continued growth as a profession, not only as individuals, but also as a collective whole. So moving forward with that, one of the reasons why I wanted to present this is because I had the opportunity to attend the National Housing Training Institute with NWACUHO. For those of you who are maybe just entering the housing functional area, NWACUHO is the overarching housing or professional organization. So where you might see ACPA or NASPA for the student affairs as a whole, NWACUHO really oversees housing and all aspects of housing. The professional development opportunity of the National Housing Training Institute really gave me the opportunity to look at professional development from another lens. And it helped me kind of reframe everything from professional development as experiences to be more of a intentional process that you craft ahead of time and you gain more than just an experience. So also while I was at NHTI, I was also reading this book right here. It's called The Neuroscience of Learning and Development, and it's edited by Marilee Brescani-Ludwig. It is a fascinating book all about learning, and really what it focuses on is student learning, but I was taking a lot of what I was learning out of that and putting that in the perspective of professional development, because I believe that professional development is really a learning process. It's a process of trying to grow, just like we work with our students on. So a lot of the concepts that I was reading in this book I found particularly applicable to the idea of professional development, and I've integrated those into this presentation in addition to the traditional professional development literature that you'll find out there. So moving on to that, motivation was the key thing that I found in Brescani-Ludwig's book. So motivation was broken down into 3 basic areas, and those were autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And we'll get into each of these areas, but the 3 of those combined together create that motivation, and I believe that motivation is what really helps us learn at a transformative level as opposed to the passive level that we may see in typical day-to-day learning, especially like if you think the traditional lecture hall, training sessions, a lot of those tend to be more passive, and I think that when you integrate this motivational piece and you find something that truly motivates you intrinsically, that's when you get that transformative learning, and that really comes from autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So throughout this presentation, I'm going to weave those into everything, but the thing I wanted to start with is, what is a professional development plan? How do you create one, and what are the steps to really creating a positive professional development outline over time? So I like to think of professional development plans as you have good professional development plans, but they can also be better. So what is one that is just a set of experiences that you want to have versus what is that more intentional development that is going to help you create experiences that allow you to progress into the next level, whatever that might be for you. I think that a lot of times we make the assumption that folks who are in the housing profession, especially at the entry-level area, that they want to go into housing long-term, and that's not the case for all of our entry-level housing professionals. So while this presentation may be using the context of housing and residence life, I want folks to know that all of these concepts can easily be applied outside of this area as well. And that's, I was really trying to take my background with alcohol and drug prevention and be like, does this still apply to something like that? And I believe that it does. So feel free that if your path isn't necessarily going down the housing route, to apply this to whatever it is that you want to do long term. So again, what we're hoping to do today is take the good professional development plans that you may already have and make them better. So where do we get started? One of the things that I felt was important as like a foundational piece is to talk about what literature on professional development plans is already out there. And you may be familiar with NWACUHO's Campus Housing Management book series, which really outlines how to manage a housing organization. If you look in the Human Resources book, there's a series of 6 books here, there's a Human Resources book, you'll find a professional development chapter that is written by Pamela Schreiber and Joshua Goldman. I found this chapter to be essential in really understanding full professional development. So a lot of the professional development tactics that I'm going to be talking about today come from that article. And I encourage folks to think about reading that if they want to go more in depth on what we're going to be talking about today. But if you take the learning aspect and that motivational piece from Brescani-Ludwig's book, and then you apply that to the professional development chapter that Schreiber and Goldman created, then you start to have this application piece. Like, I know what I have to do, not just, oh, I need to attend that event, but how do I attend that event in such a way that is going to help me actually learn and grow and engage in that learning process. So that's the background. Let's start moving forward because there's a lot of talk about, oh, look at, yep, Catherine thinks that she, yep, that there's some great chapters on all of the areas, Catherine. So one of the things that I wanted to get us started with is a quote from that chapter that really helps folks reframe professional development. And that is that a professional development plan is, and I quote, grounded in the specific values, interests, preferences, and goals of the individual for whom the plan is intended. So I want to take that and I want to go back to what we talked about with motivation, and that's that autonomy piece. And therefore, we start to get so many different aspects of professional development, and we sometimes get clouded that there's one specific path that we have to follow with our professional development plan. If I want to get to B, I have to first go through A. And that might be true for you, but it's important to know that as an autonomous person and to truly be motivated to engage in that learning, you really have to think about that as your own path. And your path may look very different from somebody else's, and you may have different paths that you want to take. So I would argue that a path really looks more like this, and this is overwhelming at first. Let's get real for just a hot second. So this can be a lot to manage in one place. However, if you think about it, this is the option. This is showing that you can go down any of these paths. You don't have to go down all of them. You don't have to go down any of them. You might want to go backwards. But realistically, it has to be what you want to do and something that's going to help you move forward, and it's going to be the way that you want to move forward. So autonomy is essential in developing a professional development plan and really knowing what it is that you want to do. So the next question is, well, how do I identify what it is that I want to do? How do I know that there is, this is the way that's going to be the best for me? And there's a lot of different ways to do that. I have highlighted 3 of them here, and there's many more. And for some of you who are out there on this journey, you will find others, and that's okay. But I wanted to at least give you some starting points, and from there move forward. So again, remember that we're going to be using the housing context, but this can be applied to anything else. So there's 3 areas that I came up with right away. And the first is looking at position descriptions for future jobs. So what I did here is took a position description for a chief housing officer position at a university, and I've blocked out where the place is, and I've probably missed one, so you'll probably find out anyway, but that's okay. And what I wanted to highlight here is when you look at those position descriptions, you're going to see the skill sets that are needed for that position. And you can think to yourself, do I have this? Do I not have this? And you'll notice that I'm using the word skill set and not experience, and I'll explain why in a little bit. So if you're looking through this position description, you'll see communication, strategic planning, teamwork, functional area expertise. All of these are essential in developing that professional development plan and knowing that you have those skills to move into that position. So that's just one aspect of doing this. Chief housing officer positions, you'll notice that there's a lot of them, and that's about right, because when you're in that higher level role, it's expected that you have a large array of skills and experiences that will help you do those problem-solving, strategic planning exercises for your organization. So there's a reason why folks don't tend to skyrocket into these positions quickly, and that's because we need time to develop ourselves. But if we're not intentional about that, then we may not get the skills needed to move into those positions. So that's just one place where you can start to identify what you may need moving forward. Another is looking at your mentors. There's a number of people who have mentors in the field that have helped them identify what they may need to do or what skills they may need to move on to that next level. Mentors can be really important in your growth in this field. Mentors are typically not assigned, and they're typically not something that happens overnight. And I really want to stress that, because when you think of a mentoring relationship, there's a lot of programs out there that will assign you a mentor, and you can talk and have coffee, but the truly meaningful mentorship-mentee relationships are the ones that occur organically. What are the ones that have developed over time just as a byproduct of what has been your interactions over the years, your viewpoints, maybe similar identities? Those things are essential when you're thinking about the true organic mentorship, mentor-mentee relationship. Now, that's not a knock against the mentorship programs, because I think that those programs can help people get introduced to who their future mentors might be. But I think it's important to think about mentorship beyond those types of programs, because many times you'll find a solid mentor outside of something like that. One other thing to note is that your mentor is probably not going to be your supervisor, and there's a reason for that. Your supervisor is really looking at this idea of, how do I help you do well for my organization or the organization that I am a part of? You know, it's not necessarily focused solely on you as a professional, and there's a difference there. Now, I know plenty of supervisor-supervisee relationships that have mentorship qualities. There's absolutely those, and I would argue that supervisors that engage in those tend to see better results from their employees. However, what I would say is that at the end of the day, everyone's working towards a goal, and that's for the organization, not necessarily for the individual. Now, again, that sounds a little a little maybe not that student development focus that we typically have. However, I think that it's important to remember that we work for organizations and we want the organization to succeed. So that context of a supervisor-supervisee relationship is not going to be the most fruitful mentor-mentee relationship. That's important to remember. So when we're thinking about mentors, everybody has a different mentor. Everyone has different goals. And those mentors, again, when we get back to that autonomous piece, is really about what is the best fit, what works for you as somebody who wants to grow in this field. So different mentors are going to have different perspectives. So finding the one that fits for you is important. And then there's also resources from our organizations. So NWACUHO, as I've already explained, is our housing organization. And there are a number of resources that NWACUHO, as well as our regional organization, Northwest NWACUHO, have for us to succeed as housing professionals and guide us when we're thinking about our professional development plans. Probably the top resource that one has is the NWACUHO core competencies. I can see Catherine typing. I'm waiting for it right now. There it is. So the NWACUHO core competencies are essential knowledge that a number of housing professionals across the United States, Canada, and I believe other countries as well have agreed upon. These are what are essential for housing professionals moving forward. And it's broken down really nicely into basic, then more customer service-y, mid-level manager-y level, and then also the chief housing officer level. So you can really kind of sense where you're at and what competencies you need in that position and what you need to move forward, and then what you need to move forward after that. So it's really nicely laid out. You can access it through NWACUHO, and if your organization or your institution is a member of NWACUHO, you can easily access it through there. Yes. And areas within are written and revised by content experts. It's very true. So Catherine brings up a great point here, and that is that the core competencies are broken down into what we would call the functional areas of housing and residence life. And within that, they are edited by folks who specialize in each of those areas. So for example, Catherine is somebody who specializes in occupancy management. So she might be a great example of somebody who would read through the occupancy management section to make sure that it's aligned with what those who focus on occupancy management actually need moving forward. So there you go, Catherine, a little shout out. So the main point of the autonomy piece of this presentation is that if it feels right, it probably is. And that is one thing that I really want folks to remember is as they're going through this journey, whatever feels the most appropriate going forward is probably going to be your best bet. And that's what's going to keep you engaged in this process moving forward. All right, so moving on. Now that we've identified the gaps, we have to start to develop those gaps. That's what our professional development plans are here for, is to help us develop as professionals. So funny how that's said. But this is that mastery portion of that motivation piece that we talked about earlier. So what we're really talking about is developing our skills and our technical competence. And that is directly pulled from that professional development chapter that I had talked about just a little while ago. Technical competence and skill sets. A lot of times those skill sets are thought of as soft skills. So we want to make sure that we're engaging in that type of process. So professional development opportunities typically fall into one of 5 areas, and this is outlined by Caffarella in the professional development chapter. These are the 5 areas: acquiring knowledge, enhancing cognitive skills, developing psychomotor skills, strengthening problem-solving skills, and changing attitudes, beliefs, and feelings. So when we're thinking about professional development as a whole, we want to be creating plans that target each of these areas as we see fit for whatever it is we're progressing towards. So in this case, a chief housing officer position, we would need to acquire knowledge on how to do that. Cognitive skills that we have probably need to be enhanced so that we can engage in strategic thinking. Developing psychomotor skills. A lot of times this is more of that hands-on piece. So if there's something that you need to be able to do with your hands, this is something that you probably want to enhance moving forward. And a lot of times we think of this as that's like a lot of facilities work. I think facilities work definitely falls into this area quite a bit, but there's also aspects of it in other areas as well, like being able to identify things on a computer screen I think would also fall under psychomotor skills. Strengthening problem-solving skills, a lot of times you'll see this in the form of case studies. And then changing attitudes, beliefs, and feelings. I find that a lot of times networking falls into this area because you're challenging what you know and what your personal beliefs or feelings might be on a certain topic because you're learning from other folks and other ways of doing things. So all of these have appropriate aspects of professional development in them. And I think the most important thing to remember is to engage in professional development that actually is appropriate. So the largest source of frustration for anybody when they're engaging in a professional development opportunity is when the activity's goals, so whatever it is that you're engaging in, those goals are not aligned with what you as a learner are hoping to achieve. That is where the most frustration comes into play. So square going into a circle, it doesn't work. So that is where that frustration comes into play. So let me give you an example. This webinar, so what we're engaging in right now, this webinar, the goal is really about knowledge acquisition. So learning about what might be a good way to implement a professional development plan. Now, if you came into this webinar hoping to change your perspective on professional development and have a different attitude towards professional development, this might not be the most appropriate professional development opportunity for you. But if you were here to learn about professional development and look at professional development with some different philosophies, then this is probably going to be something that works for you. And you're going to be really excited like this guy right here. So, again, if you weren't looking for that, you might be a lot more disappointed in that. So remember that as you're creating your professional development plans, to think about what the goal of the activity is, and then also what you're hoping to get out of that, and make sure that those are aligned, because otherwise you'll find a mismatch and it won't be something that helps you. So how do you find these professional development opportunities? Well, you found one today, and that's helpful with NWACUHO. And NWACUHO is really, I find it to be an organization that truly is committed to professional development and the growth of its professionals throughout the region. And a lot of that you'll find is through acquiring knowledge. And there's so many examples of how you can acquire knowledge through NWACUHO, whether that be the annual conference, the webinars such as what we're doing today, reading the Soundings blog. There's so many opportunities to engage and learn from each other and gain that knowledge. But it's not the only thing that NWACUHO can provide. There's a number of different other opportunities as well. So, for example, we have driving conferences. This is one that took place at Oregon State University a while ago. And there's a number of things that can come from these driving conferences. You can enhance your cognitive skills depending on what activities you're engaging with at that conference. Again, we talked about case studies, and there's always opportunities to engage in case studies at conferences, so strengthening those problem-solving skills, and then also psychomotor skills depending on what it is that you're actually doing at that conference. But let me also flip the script a little bit and talk about planning that conference, because members of NWACUHO are probably also the ones planning that conference. So again, if you're looking at it from that perspective, there's definitely opportunities to strengthen problem-solving skills, because there will be things that come up that need to be solved. There will be enhancing cognitive skills, and there will be developing psychomotor skills, because there's a number of things that need to be done. And the reality is that when you look at the core competencies, you know, one major aspect of our housing organizations is conference services. A lot of times, entry-level professionals aren't going to have the opportunity to run conferences in their role. You might, and that's awesome if you do, but not everybody will have that opportunity. So this is another way to engage in that, and that's through NWACUHO. And it's all about getting creative with what opportunities are out there for you. And I think that that creativity piece is essential when we're talking about mastery, because it doesn't all happen in the workplace. And I want to bring up this example of one of my friends who recently decided that she was going to, she moved off campus and she's going to build her own house instead of, not her herself, she's going to have a team, but she essentially is going to be building her own house. So in that process, there's elements of needing to pick out tile, needing to pick out carpet, where are the windows going to go. All those types of things are a lot of the same types of thought processes and problem-solving processes that our facilities crew go to when they're building a new building. That's an awesome opportunity to grow as a professional in something that's not related to the job. So really getting creative with the different opportunities that are out there is really important, and knowing that they're not all going to come in the professional realm. So just being open to learning in all different aspects of your life is really important. And all of that goes back to that mastery piece. How are you growing your skill sets, your cognitive skills, your psychomotor skills, your problem-solving skills? How are you acquiring knowledge and changing your attitudes and beliefs and feelings towards something? All right. So we've gone through the autonomy piece. We've gone through the mastery piece. The last section of these three, when we're talking about motivation, is purpose. And the purpose piece, I find, I resonate a lot with purpose when it comes to refocusing. And this is a picture of Moraine Lake and South Sister, which is one of the Three Sisters Mountains in Oregon. And this is probably one of my favorite places on the planet. And one of the reasons why I really like it is to refocus and to really reframe myself and ground myself again. It's one of the places where I can really truly self-reflect without any distractions and that kind of stuff. So that's why I felt it would be perfect for this, because this is all about purpose. Now there's a lot of going on here. So when we're talking about the purpose aspect of motivation, what we're talking about is creating goals that truly focus on what we're hoping to gain long term. What is the reason behind what we are doing? So when we're thinking about purpose, a lot of this is about goal setting. And are our goals set in such a way that are going to help us long term? Our professional development plans a lot of times come down to the goals that we set for ourselves over a set period of time. So making sure that those goals are aligned with our purpose to truly engage that motivation so that we stay as engaged as learners is essential. So SMART goals are really good. I know we've all heard these before, so I'm not going to go too far in depth on how these work, but you can see the acronym, you can see the pieces there. I do think that SMART goals lead to actually achieving those goals more often, and in fact there's research that supports that, but there's also an element of SMART goals help us really focus on the purpose and the why for our goal, as well as particularly in the specific aspect of this and the relevant aspect of this. So that's why I find these to be so helpful. So let's look at a typical goal for a new professional in terms of professional development plans, and reframe that goal so that it really uses the SMART technology, or not technology, the SMART framework, as well as the idea of refocusing and making sure that we're aligned with our purpose. So typical goal coming up in just a few weeks, not even a few weeks, like a week from now. NWACUHO in Seattle, the annual conference and exhibition. Great opportunity to grow professionally. Maybe a goal for this new professional would be, I would like to attend a specific conference, say NWACUHO's annual conference and exhibition. It's a good goal. That is going to be an opportunity to grow professionally that not everybody's going to be able to have, and there's going to be so many opportunities within that. But I would argue that this could be better. So maybe a better way to say this, and you'll notice that it's a lot longer, and that's okay, is that I'm hoping to become a stronger housing professional by learning more in the NWACUHO competency area of occupancy management. So what we've done at the very beginning of this goal is make sure that folks are focused, and this individual is focused on what the purpose is, becoming a stronger housing professional. That is the purpose of this. And then it says, I plan to do this by attending the NWACUHO annual conference and exhibition in 2017, which, by the way, is in Providence, not in Seattle. This year is in Seattle. where I plan to attend at least 3 sessions on occupancy management and engage in a problem-solving activity where we look at over-occupancy and under-occupancy scenarios and strategize how to resolve those situations. This is a lot more specific. It's measurable because there's specific things that one would achieve. It's definitely relevant to their goal. It's timely, 2017. So this, I would argue that this is a much stronger goal, and it really helps folks remember that purpose that will help with that motivation and that engaged learning process. All right. So what we've talked about a lot today, I love this photo, by the way, but a lot of what we've talked about today is being engaged learners, and a lot of that comes from our motivation. And when we integrate the aspects of motivation into our professional development plans, they become, 1, a lot more relevant to our work, and 2, a lot more, you have a lot more opportunity to grow and a lot more intentionality behind it. And what that means is you're able to articulate that a lot better, assuming that you've done the appropriate reflection after you've engaged in these learning processes. And that's why I put this, but I like this photo in general because it's our president, and I think that it really speaks to this engagement and reflection piece that we so often forget with our learning, is that piece that happens afterwards where we think about the things that we just engaged in and draw those critical conclusions from the experience that we just had. I think that that's important, and I can't think of a position that one needs to do that more often than the president President of the United States. I can't think of like anything else other than a leadership position where you have to reflect more often. So I find this to be really awesome. I think the other piece that I want to throw out there is that people learn at different rates. People have different goals. People have different paths that they want to move down. People have different places where they want to conclude. You know, some folks maybe don't want to get to that chief housing officer position. They're completely content with that assistant director role. That's okay, and really you are creating your professional development plan to get to where you want to go, and it's you. One other piece I would like to share before we transition over into the piece around what NWACUHO can do for you is that your professional development is your responsibility. Your position may have professional development written into it, and your organization may offer professional development support. However, your professional development really comes down to your responsibility. No one else is going to create your professional development plan for you, and no one else is going to hold you accountable for your reflection and your engagement. So it solely has to be something that you are motivated to do, which is why these pieces of autonomy, mastery, and purpose are so essential in creating a professional development plan, because it really has to be that intrinsic motivation that comes from you, not your employer. Because at the end of the day, your employer is looking out for the organization and the success of that organization. And many times that means the success of our students. So it's up to you to develop as a professional so that you can be a better person within that organization. So for example, really what I'm trying to say is your organization, if they're going to be sponsoring you to go to, say, ACUHO or Northwest ACUHO or NHTI or any of those things, they're going to expect something back that's going to benefit the organization. So that's something to keep in mind. So you do have a commitment to your organization to engage at that deeper level. And you also have that commitment to yourself depending on where you want to go moving forward. So there's a lot of reasons to really engage in this process and really look at those motivational pieces of autonomy, mastery, and purpose. All right, let's look at the different opportunities. I mentioned earlier that I had the opportunity to attend NHTI, the National Housing Training Institute, through ACUHO. I think that this is by far one of the most influential and positive experiences that I have had as a professional. And I've engaged in a lot of different opportunities and institutes through ACPA, through Northwest ACUHO. I would say that this has been the most transformative or impactful for me as a professional. One of the things I would like to highlight is that, you know, a lot of times these professional institutes, they have a cost associated with them. one of the things about Northwest NWACUHO that I truly appreciate is that there is help when it comes to finances. I have had the opportunity to be sponsored by Northwest NWACUHO, and I received a scholarship from Northwest NWACUHO to attend the National Housing Training Institute, and that definitely helped me out. I'll tell you that straight up. And that was something that really made a difference for me, because instead of focusing on how am I going to afford this or how am I going to manage money to make sure that I can attend this, it really helped me engage in that process. And that's one of the things I appreciate about Northwest NWACUHO, is that there is the resources to help, and a lot of times all you have to do is apply for those so that you can be in the running to receive one of these scholarships. We'll talk about scholarships in just a little bit. But I really want to focus on the fact that Northwest NWACUHO does provide all the 5 areas of professional development that we talked about earlier. And throughout the rest of this presentation, we'll highlight where some of these may surface. But I just wanted folks to know that all of those are available. You just have to find what works best for you within Northwest NWACUHO. So probably the highlight, and for those who are new to the region, this is our annual conference. This time, Northwest NWACUHO will be traveling to Spokane, Washington in 2017. And the actual dates slipped my mind, but it's in early February 2017. This is the equivalent of NWACUHO's ACE or ACPA's convention. It's Northwest NWACUHO's annual conference. Last year we were in Anchorage. We had close to, Catherine, go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you know the exact number, but I'm pretty sure we were close to 300 attendees last year in Anchorage, which was higher than expected. Am I right? Here comes the typing. Oh, all sorts of people are typing. This is exciting. We'll see if I'm actually right. I'm pretty sure I'm right. But it was a lot higher than expected. Oh, but it was 134. Okay, 300 must have been in Salem. Okay, yep, there it is. But 134 was much higher than expected in Anchorage. And for those that weren't able to attend, it really was one of those opportunities to engage in professional development at a number of different levels. And I imagine Spokane is going to be very similar. And the dates, for those of you who are listening on the recorded version, Catherine just provided for me, are February 7th through 9th, 2017 in Spokane. So I would highly encourage folks that if they are able to attend Northwest NWACUHO in Spokane to go ahead and do that, because you'll find a lot of opportunities. But we also have drive-in conferences. One of the things about Northwest NWACUHO, and it's a unique thing for our region as opposed to other regions within NWACUHO, is that our region is the largest geographically, by far. So it's difficult for us to have a lot of networking events for the entire region because we are so spread out. Funny story, we're also the smallest when it comes to population. So when you combine those two, networking opportunities are not we're not able to cater to those for the entire region all the time. But we do provide that through our annual conference. Small but mighty. Yes, thank you, Catherine. However, we do provide drive-in conferences. And a lot of times these drive-in conferences really help each area of our region to really network within each other. So you'll find a drive-in conference in Oregon for folks in Oregon to truly network outside of the annual conference. Find that in Washington, Alberta, British Columbia, Alaska. You'll find those, and they really cater to those specific regions within our region. You have the opportunity to not only attend one of these drive-in conferences, but also help plan the drive-in conference like we talked about earlier. So that's a highlight within Northwest NWACUHO. There's also these First Friday webinars. This is actually a really helpful to kind of highlight what I was just talking about. This is our region, and actually in this photo, Washington is cut off. So Oregon isn't even in this photo, and only the very top of Washington is in this photo. So just to kind of give you an idea of how large our region actually is. But our First Friday webinars are a opportunity to engage over the internet in this format. And the topics range throughout the year. So we're really intentional about what functional areas are we focusing on, what are we going to discuss, what knowledge do folks need. Again, when we talked about those areas of professional development, this is really focusing on that knowledge acquisition piece. So that's the Northwest NWACUHO First Friday webinars. We also have the scholarships like I talked about earlier. Key things to note is that we have scholarships to attend the annual conference. We also have scholarships to help folks get to those other professional development opportunities you'll find closer to the bottom of your screen there. So the NWACUHO Conference New Professional Scholarship for those new professionals that want to attend NWACUHO's conference, like what I received, the National Housing Training Institute Scholarship, and then also the STARS Conference Scholarship. And STARS is an opportunity for an undergraduate student to engage with NWACUHO in a way that will help them grow as a housing professional, somebody who wants to go from undergraduate into a housing profession. So there's that, in addition to our Northwest NWACUHO conference scholarships that you'll see outlined above. I think I really want to emphasize the scholarships portion because this is money that Northwest NWACUHO sets aside for our members. So we want folks to feel empowered to apply for these scholarships because we want folks to have them. We want folks to benefit from not having to financially pay for some of these opportunities. So I encourage everybody that if they have the opportunity to apply for a scholarship to go to one of these opportunities, NWACUHO, Northwest NWACUHO, STARS College, or NHTI. Kristen here is a great story. She's telling us here in the chat box that she was a STARS College alumni and that she received a Northwest NWACUHO scholarship to do that. That's awesome because here she is now. So moving forward, the Soundings blog is another opportunity within Northwest NWACUHO that I want folks to recognize. The Soundings blog, first of all, has a number of different engaging topics. On your screen right now, you'll see a number of the different titles that we've had over the past year. But the Soundings blog is not only an opportunity to engage in reading and knowledge acquisition, but you also can enhance your cognitive skills because you can write a blog post as well. And when you're writing a blog post, you think about things differently. You analyze your content differently so that you are communicating in a way that folks will understand. So that's a different level of learning, and that's a different professional development opportunity like we talked about earlier. So something to think about is maybe thinking about writing a blog post as well as reading them as they come out. If you're looking to get engaged in one of our committees, we do have 4 committees with Northwest NWACUHO, and these are really opportunities for folks to apply their learning. So when we're talking about enhancing those skills, cognitive, psychomotor, and problem solving, these are opportunities to do that. And we have 4 different committees. We have our communications committee, which really focuses on all of our internal and external communications within the organization. That is chaired by Brock Sieb from Eastern Washington University. I myself focus on providing professional development opportunities with the Professional Development Committee. Membership engagement is really how do we keep our members engaged in Northwest NWACUHO and what are different opportunities to help them connect with one another. That is co-chaired by Leslie Bird and Lawrence Lamb. And then we have, new this year, our Diversity and Inclusion Committee, which is co-chaired by Williama Sanchez and Nathan Bodenstadt. So, and you'll notice that within this group, we have folks from all over the region. It's not just one particular area. So folks really get engaged all over, and we really do connect. Even though we are a large region, we do connect with each other quite well. One other opportunity is engaging with the board of directors and becoming a board member. This is definitely a larger commitment than some of the other things that we've talked about today. However, I would say that the number of skill sets that one gains as being a board member is incredibly large. So you'll see this is one of our former boards, but we also have opportunities on that board to engage in communication between the board of directors and the rest of the membership. We have the treasurer. So when we're talking about fiscal management and finances, you may not have that opportunity in your current position. However, you could be the treasurer for Northwest NWACUHO, and you'll get a lot of experience with that. So just thinking outside of the box and how you can engage with Northwest NWACUHO and also benefit yourself with skill set and skill development. Those are essential. I think the big thing is that there's so many opportunities to grow within Northwest NWACUHO, and I really encourage everybody out there to engage with the Northwest NWACUHO membership, with the different opportunities that are out there. And remember, this is autonomous, so you want to make sure that they're the things that you want to engage in. However, there are so many opportunities in Northwest NWACUHO that you will probably find something within the conference in the region that fits and really speaks to you. So with that, I want to make sure that everyone has access to the website. It's northwestnacuho.org. It's right there on your screen. You can also Google Northwest NWACUHO, and it's the first one that pops up. That is going to be your main source and your main connection to Northwest NWACUHO throughout the year. And then the more that you engage in the organization, the more you'll find other ways to benefit from us as well. So with that, I know a lot of you are brand new to the region. This might be your first interaction with Northwest NWACUHO, period. So as the chair for the Professional Development Committee, I do want to welcome you to Northwest NWACUHO, and I really encourage you to engage with the conference, with the region, and with everything that we have to offer, because if there is one thing I can say about this region is that we are committed to each other and helping each other grow professionally. As an organization, it's something that really speaks to the values, and you can see that coming through in our work. And you can see a lot of folks really engaging with each other and helping each other grow and offering different perspectives on how to move forward on certain topics. So you just see that connection and that, it's incredible. So one of the things I would encourage you to do is to engage in a way that feels most appropriate for you with the region, because this region is committed to you to succeed as a professional. So with that, that is everything that I have today. I hope that this is something that you found helpful. I encourage you to take some time to reflect on this experience, because, again, learning really comes from that full engagement and that reflection piece afterwards. So thank you for your time. Welcome to Northwest NWACUHO, and I hope everybody has an excellent rest of the day. At this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Richard to finish up and offer a conclusion.
All right. Thank you very much, Alex. I know I really enjoyed that presentation. I hope everyone else did. Thank you, everyone, for attending today, First Friday's webinar. We hope you enjoyed your experience, and we'll consider other First Friday webinars in the future. Our next webinar will be at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Please note that is a change of time. Right now we've been doing them at 10 a.m. Pacific, so at 1 p.m. Pacific time on August 5th, 2016. There's several links at the bottom part of your screen. There we go. Several links at the bottom part of your screen. One is for a feedback form. Please fill out this form so we can better assess our First Friday webinars and continue to improve the professional development opportunities that Northwest NWACUHO brings you. And thank you again for joining us this morning. We look forward to seeing you again next month.
And Richard, I just want to throw out there, I'll stay on for another 5 minutes if folks have questions they want to type into the chat box. I'm more than happy to stay on for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. If not, you're welcome to depart, and we hope to see you next time.
All right, so we have a question about professional development plans for RDs. I personally have a professional development plan. Over the course of my time here, they've fluctuated in terms of the layout, but I'm more than happy to share my own with you, Heather. If you want to send me a private message with your email address, I'd be happy to share that with you.
maybe all the questions we have for now. So I'm going to go ahead and once again, thanks for coming, and for anybody watching on our YouTube video, thank you for taking the time out to check us out.